All right, hi Connor. We are back and we have our fence done. So we are going to do a little bit of stuff with this just before we head off to start on our main enclosure. We need to add another modifier to this fence so that we can use it in our scene really easily. And the modifier we're going to use is a curve modifier. And it's going to allow us to shape our fence in the direction we want it to go, because at the moment when we add counts to our array modifier here, it just goes off in one straight line, and we're going to make it so our fence can go around curves or corners without having to build lots of fences. We just use this one modifier for it, the whole lot. So in order to do that, we need to add a new object to our scene, and this is called a Bezier curve. Before I start adding it though, I notice that I have this big fence in the way, and it's going to be really hard to work with this Bezier curve just at the moment with the fence in the way. So we are going to hide that fence. All we need to do is have our fence selected and go object and up the top show hide selected, or we can always just press H, which is so much easier. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to press H, and there she goes. And I'm just noticing I don't have screencast keys on. I don't think I've got screencast keys. And nope, I've got to enable that add-on. User preferences, add-ons, start to type the name, there's screencast keys there. I should remember to do this. I'm sorry about that. Close that, start displays, there's the screencast key. So, we have our cursor over here, and when we're adding these curves, it is really important that everything goes in the middle, because the fence will follow the curve based on the curve's position in the world, and we want its position to be 0, 0, 0 to begin with, and that's right there. So I will go put my cursor in the middle. I can't find that the one that puts my cursor in the middle. I'm just going to go Shift S and go cursor to center, and there she is. Now we're going to add a curve, and they're up here, these curves here. When I add it, I get a squiggly line in the middle. Now curves are really interesting because they allow us to, first of all, they're interesting because you can't see them in a scene. They don't really exist. They're just a line. And any object without a face, you can't see in a scene. So this is just a line, just an edge, I suppose you could call it. But it's a funny kind of edge, and you'll notice that when we get into edit mode on it. Another thing about the curve is that's about it. This curve's good. The line of this curve is how the fence is going to go. So obviously it's too small for our fence at the moment. Let's scale it up. I just pressed S, and now I'm scaling it up this way. And you could just as easily change to the scale and stretch it out like that. But I like S because it keeps the shape. So I'm going to go a bit more on the S value there. It's still at 0. Now, at the moment, whenever I do this, I try and zoom in and it doesn't go right in. When I get in a situation like that, it's because I'm not focused on my object. And I can focus on objects going view, align view to selected. And then you've got all sorts of options. You want to look at the top of it? Do you want to look at the bottom? We are going to go top, and now I can zoom in a lot closer on that origin. Another really quick way to do that is to press the decimal point key on the key number pad on the right hand side of your keyboard. So if I hit that, it also focuses in. And every time I'm working on an object, I hit that decimal point just down next to the 0, and it focuses in. It's also good practice to start looking at these number keys on this side of the keypad, because if I hit 7 on the keypad, remember not the buttons at the top of the keyboard but on the side, I can go there, the top, and you see where I'm looking top. If I want to look at the, it's just the front, that was 1, top was 7, front was 1, 3 is right, and then I think shift 3 and things like that will get you there, but it's just handy. Also, 0, that's camera view, so when we get to start rendering, it's going to be into the camera view, and that's really, really good. And at the moment I could actually press F12 and render this one out and you won't even see anything. Yeah. Oh, you can see our actual thing. Never mind, don't worry about that. I just pressed escape to get out of that view after I pressed F12 to render. You can also render over here with render, that one. The animation is a bit along the track, but I've got a plan for that. Anyway, so back to the tutorial. Sorry. What I'm going to do is I am going to bring back our fence. So to do that, I can go Alt-H to unhide everything, or I can go Object, up to my Hide menu, Show Hidden. There's Alt-H. There's my fence, and it's stretching out in that direction. Fair enough. I'm just going to now add a modifier to this fence, and that modifier is going to be, select my fence, just my fence, I don't want this at the moment, and it's going to be, here's my modifier thing, a curve modifier in the third list, third one down, curve. And that's popped this down the bottom. So the first thing this thing does is it does its array, then it follows the curve. And it's going to follow in that axis there, but it doesn't know what to follow, so we need to tell it. Just like our Boolean operators where we cut holes in things, we've got to tell it which to follow. Lucky for us, we've only got one Bezier curve. That's it there, Bezier curve. So when we click on there, there'll only be one option. If you've got more curves, make sure you know what name you're going to follow. So we'll click on that, and what do you see? You see our fence now has a bit of a kink in it because our curve isn't quite big enough. So I'm going to select the curve again, and I'm going to, we could scale out that way. No, that moves it. I'm going to go S to scale on this one, mate. Always S to scale on this one. I don't think things get distorted. So I'm going to scale that out. Actually, I could have done that other scale like that. That's pretty nice. It's very big. I might actually minimize it a bit. I'm gonna, when I do this and I slide across, my middle mouse button is down. It's not showing it over here, but I'm holding the middle mouse button down to move my view, and I'm holding shift down at the same time. I hold down shift and then middle mouse button, and then I slide left to right. And sometimes things like that you don't realize until too late. But holding shift and middle mouse button allow you to really move around a scene very, very efficiently. So I scroll go there, move it, hold shift, move to side, zoom in on things, shift and move. There we go. Anyway, so I'm going to minimize the size of my fence, just going to select it and go S to scale and move my mouse that way towards the origin. The origin is still back here, and that's very important. The fence thinks it's there, but it's following a curve as well. So that's the last thing it did, was follow a curve. Now, another really interesting thing about this is we can always go into edit mode with the fence selected, and there's my fence back at its original position. So if I make changes to the fence, I'm just going to zoom in, select that, any face, and press decimal point on the number pad to zoom in. So I can do anything to this at all and edit it all I want. I could extrude out that little bit there, happens to all of them, except for the cap on the end, because we'll have to do that individually. And then I can go tab. I won't do that. We won't mess around with it, because let's go Control Z to undo that move. I didn't want to do that. And yeah, that looks good. Okay, so we've got our curve. So the question is, Let's get out of edit mode on the fence. We don't want to edit it. It's following our curve, and we can crank up our count, and it follows that curve wherever the curve goes. So now I'm just going to show you how to edit the curve. Very interesting little project, this one. I'm going to right click on my curve, going to go into edit mode, and what you see is a straight line with arrows pointing in the direction of the curve, and at either end there are these vertices. So I can click on that one, I can click on that. I'm going to go to move mode because you don't want to scale here. But what happens is these are handles. The ones off this one here and this one here are handles. And when you move those, it moves the curve in different directions. So if I wanted, for instance, this curve to be a circle, I could go over to this side, select the middle one. When you move the middle one, it'll also move it, but it's a bit more of the whole object. I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to move that around there. I'm being very careful just to use the arrows and not the blue arrow for the Z, because if I do Z, it makes the fence dip down, and I want to keep it on a flat plane for the moment. So I never use Z, right mouse button to unselect that and send it back to where it was. But I can use my green and red, that is X and Y. So our X is red and Y is green, in order to change the shape. Now, if it's not long enough, maybe I want to go further around, we can extrude curves. So I can select that end there in the middle, that's the main one. These are just handles off to the side, so we've got two main. And I'm going to press E to extrude and move a new part of the curve over to here. So when I look at that at the side, I've got to be, oh, look at that, it's dipped down. So what am I going to do? If I get my curve to follow, let's go back to my fence. I'm going to go out of, no, well, I'll just show you what I mean by this. I'm going to go out of edit mode very quickly, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to crank up my count on my array modifier, and it's going to follow that curve all the way down. Now this is fantastic for fences that go down hills. You can imagine we can have a big mountainous area with the dinosaurs roaming in it, and we could have fences up and down mountains. But just for the moment, I'm going to keep it flat because we don't know what our ground looks like. So what can we do to get it back to flat when we're moving it? Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go right click on our Bezier curve, and we're going to go to where it's dipping down too much, and we're going to go into edit mode, and we're going to select that last one there. So that's the second one that we had, or the first one on that end. We extruded and we got this new one here, and I'm going to move it up. I can move it up just manually, but it's such an imperfect science. That's still not straight. If I have a look on a side, you can still see that it's not straight. And I just pressed number 1 to look from this angle. I just went number pad 1. So we could straighten it up like that. I suppose that's pretty good. That's not too bad. But just to be absolutely sure, it's the Z axis I'm moving on. It's the Z up down. And over here on the right hand side, if this isn't open for you, you just grab this little plus arrow here and pull her open. That Z number needs to be 0, because as I move it, watch that number, up, now it's in the positive, now it's in the negative, because this is our 0 line, and we want it at 0. So we can just click on that, type 0, enter, and she's perfectly flat again. Perfectly flat. So you can make this fence as big as you want, I suppose, for the moment, but what I'm going to do, and you can play around with it, we can always select our fence and go into edit mode, and bang, she's back where she was, and we can hold shift down, middle mouse button to move across to it. Actually, I've got that selected, so I'm going to hit the decimal point just to zoom right in. So we can edit this, and I think we will, because I'm noticing that our fence has a lot of stuff underneath. There's some barbed wire up the top. We'll get into that a little later, but let's have a look at let's have a look for the next one at our main project, which is going to be the enclosure, and I shall have a look at that one. All right, see you next time. See you, mate.